Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Berman Hour, the first weekday installment of the Berman Hour, the third episode ever of all time. It's good to see some of you. Today my guest is one of my best friends and musical allies, the great Bradley Riot. I'm going to see if I can Bradley turn down my awesome late night theme, which is not at all from the Late Show, the Late Night with David Letterman. But welcome my guest, Mr. Bradley Riot. How are you?
I am here. Hello.
Yeah, you look good.
Thanks.
Right.
You too.
All right, I'm still trying to, I hired a bunch of interns over the weekend, but they're all, I had to furlough them immediately. Yeah, all right. Well, welcome to
Thanks.
the Berman Hour. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I think people know it's the Berman. I could probably move this.
I don't know. It's cute. The cat's cute. I like the cat.
Oh, yeah, the cat will stay.
All right,
Well, welcome.
thank you. Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers to you, my friend. I wish I could hang out with you and cheers you in person.
I know. This is we're doing social distancing like really well right now. 6 feet, like times a lot. So
yeah. So I'm in my apartment in Studio City, California, and you are where?
I'm in Eagle Rock, which is kind of by Highland Park.
Right. So for
Northeast
people that don't live in Los Angeles, I'm in the Valley, and Bradley is in the new hippest part of town, known as Eagle Rock. So
yeah, it's great.
I mean, you wouldn't be anywhere else. So we've known each other a long time, but for the purpose of people who don't know that, I'm not going to take a trip down memory lane and say a bunch of incriminating things about either of us. But the reason that you're here is because you love me and you're one of my best friends. The reason I decided to do this is because I couldn't sleep the other night, and I thought starting a talk show would be just as good as doing anything else these days.
I think it's a great idea. I think it's super cool. I saw it immediately, like, let me be a part of that.
Well, I wanted to talk to you regardless because you had a new record come out this past Friday.
That is
I know the
true.
intricacies of it, but to catch people up, you did solo stuff under the moniker Bradley Riot for a long time. That morphed into Bradley Riot and the Blackhands, and then it became the Blackhands.
Right.
And you drank some Sons of Anarchy juice and did Motorcycles for a while, and then you were back in Blackhands mode, and now you're back in Bradley Riot mode. So tell us a little bit about this new release, the name of the record, and what's going on with it, man.
Yeah, so I've, like you said, been doing Blackhands for quite a while, and there's been a couple different chapters of it, and this last chapter of it kind of ended and ran its course. So I decided, cool, let's get back into doing solo stuff. So I've had all these songs that I've written that are sort of solo songs, but not really bands type of songs.
Yeah.
And I haven't released them, so I was like, you know what, let's just go ahead and do this. And I had a schedule to record with one of our good friends coming up soon. But because of all the quarantine stuff, I was like, well, let me just do these demos on like my old iPad. So I started putting them out, and so far I put 3 out the other day under the title Bad Poetry. And then there are 6 more songs coming within the next couple months.
Well, we'll talk about those. We'll talk about those when you're. I'm sure you're gonna be on some of my competitor shows as well.
Yeah.
But we'll let them have that. We want the glory of the first release. So, the 3 songs on Bad Poetry are kind of precursors to what will eventually be on the record.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah,
Fisher Price version of it.
Yeah, no, that's cool. What is your goal in terms of releasing music that's kind of classified as a demo? It's not too common in 2020, but in the year 2000, it was the only thing that we knew how to do at that point, So was it an attempt to kind of do a throwback thing or out of necessity? What was really your plan with it or your goal with it? Really?
It doesn't have much to do with throwback as it does necessity. And also it's just kind of like, I guess telling people like, hey, look, you can make music at home. It doesn't need to be 100% perfect and polished. Like my voice is cracking here and there. You can hear all sorts of mistakes in the demos and whatnot.
Yeah, it's great. It's raw. Like, it's real. It's real. It's got like a real vitality to it.
It takes the shroud off, and I think there's a lot of young people getting into music and stuff like that now lately as well. And I think it kind of, for me at least, goes, hey, look, like, you don't have to be perfect. Just put it out there. Because we're all bored and looking for something new, to kind of like, I guess, stimulate us right now, So I say, like, cool, go ahead and just put it out there. Who cares? And then, if you want to do it better later, then go ahead and do the polished version. Sometimes people like the unpolished version even better. So,
Yeah, yeah. When
yeah.
we were first working together in 2009, you were kind of talking to labels at that point for some of your solo stuff, and I
Right.
remember, I think it was Joe Sib who told you, you sound like a more punk rock version of the Violent Femmes, which I thought was like the most brilliant and appropriate description of your music. But there's something, you have a very unique voice, but there's something very unique about the guitar playing that you do. You have a very unique tuning. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, my secret is being terrible at guitar. So I'm just kidding. But my tuning, I tuned down to C sharp. Originally, it was so that I could reach the peak range of my voice and still just kind of like, I guess, have the guitar sound a little darker and whatnot. So it created this little duality type of thing. And that's kind of the gist of it. I was like, you know what? I kept tuning down and down and down. And so I ended up in C sharp standard. And I think it's cool. It's like a different mood and different vibe, and it keeps me singing high. So it's cool.
That's awesome. So you tune down to C sharp standard so that so you get that jangly, low, dark, brooding,
Right.
of an acoustic guitar sound, and then
Dirty.
you're able to kind of sing to your voice peaks and cracks a little bit.
Right. So
Okay.
so it allows me to hit my maximum range. Whereas, like, if in my mind, if I'm writing the song, the notes that I would want to hit in standard are just out of my range. So I went ahead and did that, and it's cool. And I've had my guitar set up to I guess facilitate me tuning in that range.
I never knew that about you. I mean, I knew that you tuned. Yeah. I never put it together. Well, Father Time makes fools of us all. Have you found in the last 10 or 11 years that you've been kind of doing this in that tuning that your voice has changed? I know mine has a little bit, and there's certain things that I can do, but I have to kind of approach it differently. Have you had to deal with any of that?
Yeah, definitely. I find that lately I've incorporated a lot more pure notes and singing in my songs. When I first started, it was just like as fast as possible, as loud as possible, scream every note you possibly can. You can sort of equate it to like original Against Me type of stuff, where back in the day when Laura Jane Grace was under, as Tom Gable, just belting it all out.
Sure.
And now if you listen to new Against Me records, like I said, equating myself to something like that, one of my favorite bands, there's definitely that element in there and that intensity and that fire, but there's also this other duality that like a person naturally develops as they go on, So,
sure. If anybody out there in TV land, unlike some of my competitors like James Corden and Jimmy Fallon, I actually take questions from the audience. So if you're out there and you have a question for Bradley Riot here, don't be afraid to type that in and we'll get to it. What do you strive for in your songwriting specifically? I know this, but other people don't know this. Like what, and specifically for the songs that are on Bad Poetry, which again came out on Friday. It's available on Bandcamp, Bradley Riot. What were you going for with these songs?
These songs are sort of a therapy for me. Mostly, as a lot of musicians will just write, or actually, if you're at home and you just want to play guitar and sing and write and not do anything with it, cool. Like, it makes you feel better to get it out. We have this somehow narcissistic curse to want to put all our music out there, so we think people want to hear what we have to say. That's why we're doing this. But with me releasing these things, I think you said it well. It's long overdue for a solo record, and these songs were therapy for me. I do have like quite a few fans and followers, and I thought, I'm denying myself and denying them and whatever, the world, I guess, and I should just go ahead and put these out. So these are kind of therapy
I'm
songs.
denying the world my greatness if I don't release
Of
these.
course, yes. I'm incredibly talented, good looking, charismatic. You know, it's a pleasure to next to you. I mean, obviously.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I just certainly don't want to dive into anything too personal. But when you're talking about these songs kind of being therapy, there was a time where you had kind of shifted your main focus from music to motorcycles for the purpose of
Yeah.
your your uh, your livelihood, really. So, for
Right.
those of you out there that don't know Bradley, in addition to being a great musician and a great engineer, who actually produced my first record, also has his own motorcycle fixing company, motorcycle whatever.
As actually, yeah, custom manufacturing, I guess, if you want to say.
Yeah, so under the name Riot Cycles, which you can also find on the interwebs.
Right.
So can you tell us a little bit about what got you into doing Riot Cycles and fixing motorcycles, and a little bit about that part of your life?
Yeah, for sure. I guess in the simplest form, you know, like I was never interested in motorcycles whatsoever. You've known me for a long time. Never once did I say, you know what, I think I'm going to start a motorcycle company. That'd be great. You know, never occurred to me. And I saw what is called a cafe racer, which is basically the punk rock version of a motorcycle. It's you take a motorcycle, you strip it down. There's like absolutely nothing on the bike that it doesn't need to run. They're light, they're fast, they're loud, they're offensive, and I'm like, that's
That's
awesome.
you. That's you.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm like 120 pounds when I'm fed. So like all those things, you know. I'm aerodynamic, so basically, yeah. So I built one for myself, and somebody goes, "Oh, that was really cool. Can you build one for me?" And I was like, "Sure." And it happened again and again and again. And I was like, "Oh, geez, I need to actually make a company out of this." And I was required to make it legitimate. It pays the bills a little bit more, at least at the time, than music. So I just kind of kept it going. So
Yeah, exactly. That's
yeah,
awesome. That's awesome.
yeah, it's
We had,
great. We got a
we had a
couple
question
bikes from
from
home.
we had a question from I believe it's Jillian in South Florida.
Okay,
When you're in the process of putting
Florida represent.
when you're in the process of putting together a release, uh, do you ever come across something that you decide not to put it out? I think her question was, do you ever decide to not put something out? If so, what does that process look like? I guess it's kind of like a self, like you move a song to the trash on your mental
Yeah,
desk and remove it.
I think there's a scientific term for it. It's called check yourself before you something's wreck yourself. Is that how it is? I don't know. There's certain things where you go, okay, cool. This is a body of work. Maybe this one doesn't belong, or maybe it's not up to par as the other songs and whatnot. So you kind of like dog ear it, save it for later.
Do you
A
go
lot of
back?
times.
Oh, sorry. Continue. I have a question, follow-up question. Now, but go
Okay.
for it.
Yeah, no worries. There's not really a I mean, every once in a while you're like, the song kind of sucks. Maybe I shouldn't put it out there or whatever it is. But for the most part, yeah, it's just kind of like if they don't really fit within the body of work, or they're not like 100% up to par with the rest of them, I'll save it for later. That's it. There's not really like another process to it, I guess. But thank
Yeah.
you, Killian, for your question. Florida represent.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Jillian. Do you, and Sammy, you're asking us something about a motorcycle. If you are in Bakersfield, Sammy, which I think you are, in normal times, Bradley would be able, right, to get up to Bakersfield and get a bike to bring it back and get it fixed?
Yeah, it's possible. That means travel.
Yeah, in normal times, not right now. Shout out to Matt Stockeld, who's one of my favorite people and one of your favorite people as well. But I wanted to ask, do you ever go back through your Bradley Riot songwriting vault and think, either I'm going to dust this song off and release it, or you kind of take a piece from an old song that maybe was kind of a stinker, but that had a good part. Did you do any of that for any of these songs on Bad Poetry?
Absolutely. The last song on Bad Poetry is called Don't Say Goodbye. And that is one of my old songs. I wrote that one in 2012 and I never put it out. It had like a longer bridge part to it at the end and whatnot. And you know what? I was just like, let's cut it off and just keep it there. We'll keep the meat and put that out as part of this. So yeah, and then actually I have a fourth one already in my brain, and that's actually going to be some older songs that I released that were either iPhone recordings or like something that I recorded real quick, and I just don't even have them anymore on my own personal hard drives, or MySpace songs got deleted or something, you know. So
Yeah.
I've had requests for that too. So
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I think about that a lot. I'm like, what if Bandcamp goes the way of MySpace? There'd be so much material that just gets lost, you know?
I know. And you know, it's crazy because I have even for Blackhands we have unreleased material from both chapters that we started. I know that one of the hard drives exists at a person's house who is doing music video editing. So there's definitely an unreleased music video, and there are definitely unreleased songs that are at a hard drive somewhere in Los Angeles, assuming that he still has them. I don't know. So
yeah,
it's crazy, man.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Well,
Yeah.
while we're unable to be together because of this shelter in place and this quarantine, I wanted to ask if during this time you've developed what you would consider helpful tips or habits that increase your fluidity in terms of your routine and your creativity, or on the contrary, if you've been kind of stifled stifled from being creative because of this. What has either of those kind of been like for you?
Yeah, I've been affected greatly by it. In addition to owning the motorcycle shop, I do work for a bar in Los Angeles, you know, so we had to close down on March 15th. So I've had like a couple months of off, you know, being off work, and you know, at first when all this stuff went down around that same date, when, you know, the governor decided to go ahead, we're going to close California, I was like, cool, this is going to last 2 weeks, something like that, you know. So I took to a bottle of Jameson and just kind of hung out, and we're just like willy-nilly doing whatever. And then, you know, 2 weeks passed and we kept extending it, and I was like, you know what, I need to actually do something, because this is going to last a lot longer than, you know, I thought and a lot of people thought.
Yeah.
So one of my things that I do when we're not in quarantine, I decided to go ahead and pick up this habit. I have these little tiny black notebooks, and in them I have like a schedule that I like. See, I'm very busy. Done.
Yeah.
Check them off the list. So
crossed out. Yeah.
what I came up with was this thing, and basically it just says like, wake up, drink water. I have to force myself to do that because I'm terrible and I forget. Wake up, drink water, take your vitamins, coffee, breakfast. One of the things I do is I check in with at least 2 members of my like circle per day. So I'll either reach out to a friend or a family member every day just to check in. You know, we know a lot of people have like mental health issues. A lot of people are, you know, at home with their significant others. A lot of people are just home by themselves, and like it can get really lonely and whatnot. So I think it's really important to check in with somebody that you know, at least like per day. And then I do stretching. We were talking about this the other day. I do Qigong every day, which is like it's the basis of Tai Chi. And then I declutter something every day.
That's great. Great idea.
I go through like, you know, junk drawer, and I'm like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. So I dump the whole thing out, throw away everything I don't need, and then put it all back. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I declutter something every day, which is cool. And then, finally shower. That's important. Music. And then I try to save social media and all my emails and stuff like that for later on. Just because
it's easy to fall into the routine of doing that all fucking day long.
Dude. So I was going to start posting this thing on my stories and be like, okay, everybody screenshot your iPhone usage. Because iPhones or your social usage, because everybody on you know, iPhones, I don't know if Androids have it too, but it has a graph of how much
it alerts you weekly.
In that 2 weeks, my highest day, I spent 8 hours on social media. Just doing this.
That's killer.
And you know, a lot of my business stuff is like social media messaging and whatnot, so like you can kind of take it with a grain of salt, but I was like, 8 hours, Jesus, you know. So I save it for that, and then I have music again, and then at the bottom here, I don't know if you can see that, it says whiskey. Oh, well, it says whiskey.
Okay, so you
so
finish off your day with a well-deserved.
I try to just bookend it with that, you know.
Well, that's
great. Yeah, so I don't know. I think it's important for everybody to kind of like create a routine. You know, the next page here says details. And so in the following page, I just put down like things that I need to do and cross off. So
Yeah. Well, that's great,
yeah,
man. Thanks for sharing.
yeah, of
Well, I
course.
appreciate you, being on my new talk show here. I'm sure that you're going to be on my competitor shows at some point later. The the Conans and the Fallons and the Myerses. But I'm glad that I got you first. Again, it's at Bradley Riot. You have a new record that came out. It's only on Bandcamp at this point. It's called Bad Poetry. It's very good. I heard it
Thank you.
last week when we were talking about it. And thank you very much for joining. And thanks everyone for tuning in. And those of you that asked some good questions, that's awesome. I will be back tomorrow. My guest is going to be another one of my best friends, and the singer in my other band, Mr. Pete Marullo from Protagonist. So thank you very much, Bradley.
Thank
Good
you,
to see
man. I
you.
love this idea. Keep it going. I love you.
I
All
love you
you
too,
guys
man.
too. Thank you guys.
We'll see you tomorrow on the Berman Hour, everyone. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.